Millions of books are published every year, and while Hollywood loves to adapt books, it seems lately they've just been focusing on sequels and remakes. So here are some books I would love to see adapted for the screen. Starting with the big one here, Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere novels. If you don't know what the Cosmere is, it's an interconnected series of books, kind of like the MCU. But unlike the MCU, where you need to watch every project in a very specific order, the Cosmere is a bit more lenient with the connections. The connections are more throwaway mentions, or a character from another book will show up. It's written that way intentionally so Sanderson doesn't lose newcomers. While technically the first book in the Cosmere is Elantris, it's one of his weaker novels and doesn't lend itself to being the first movie in this hypothetical film and TV adaptation. I'd start with Mistborn. There's a much more cinematic scale story. Adapt the first three Mistborn books, and then do Stormlight Archives as a TV show. Because the difference between Stormlight and Mistborn is the Mistborn books are around 400 to 600 pages, which you can easily do as a movie length, whereas every Stormlight book is 1,000 pages or more. They are massive, so I'd adapt Stormlight as a series where each episode is around 2 hours or so. As for the Cosmere novels, Trust of the Emerald Sea, Brandon has hinted that he wants to make an animated feature, and I'd like to honor that wish. Continuing with Brandon Sanderson, Alcatraz versus the Evil Librarians. This actually was supposed to be a movie from DreamWorks about 15 years ago, but they decided to scrap it and make the Croods instead. Great decision. I do think that this would work better as a series, though, rather than a movie, because the books are episodic in nature, and you can't fit 6 books into one movie. I think doing it as a 6 episode streaming series where each episode is around 45 minutes to an hour would work a lot better. And I'd keep it animated and animate it in the style of the illustrations. My final Brandon Sanderson adaptation I would like to see is Skyward. I would like Joseph Krasinski to direct this, since he's well known for doing Top Gun Maverick, and this is essentially Top Gun in space. He's also known for doing Tron Legacy, so you combine Top Gun Maverick, which is about fighter pilots, with the sci-fi aesthetic of Tron Legacy. That's basically Skyward. It's got intense dogfights that I would love to see on the big screen. Next up is Dragon's Maid. This is a book that was published in 1985, and it's a fantasy novel about a middle-aged witch who is called to go on a quest to slay a dragon. If I were adapting this, I'd embrace the fact that it was published in the mid-80s and make it in the style of other 80s fantasy movies such as Labyrinth, Dark Crystal, and Legend. I think would resonate well with the audience because anybody that grew up in the 80s and saw those movies would be around the same age as the main characters. They would resonate with a little more. The biggest issue with adapting the book, though, is the first two-thirds are a bit of a slow burn, so I would need to find a way to tighten up the pacing while also not losing anything important about the plot or characters. The Dollmakers. This is a brand new book that just came out about a month ago, and I really enjoyed it. It's a story about a world where these people called dollmakers make warrior dolls to fight monsters that have invaded. It's kind of like the movie Nine, except the humans aren't extinct. The author Lynn Buchanan said that the story was influenced by her love for Studio Ghibli films, and so I think you make the movie in that style, it could work. The Magic Treehouse series. I think this would work best as a TV series on PBS Kids. PBS Kids is no stranger to having shows based on books. Arthur, Berenstain Bears, Cat in the Hat, Curious George, the list goes on. When I was a kid, PBS Kids had a show called Red Wall, which was also based on a book series. And what made it so unique to PBS Kids was that it was serialized. Each episode would have a cliffhanger, and the beginning of each episode would be a recap. I think using this method would work very well for Magic Treehouse, since there is this overarching story and you do need to read the books in order. It's basically Doctor Who for kids, teaching them about history and animals. Each book is around 60 pages, so they're pretty short, and I think it would lend itself well to a 30-minute series, with the extra time that would normally go to commercials being used to teach more facts about whatever the episode is about, similar to how Arthur had the Words from Us Kids segments that are relevant to whatever that episode was about. I think it would work best as an animated half-hour series. And finally, on here we have Fablehaven. I think this would work best as an animated series where each episode is about an hour, because the books are a bit too short to be movies, but they're also a bit too long to be traditional TV series. I think doing it as a streaming show would be the best medium for it, and you make it animated because each book is a time jump. Each book is about what happens during a summer vacation, but there's also cliffhangers at the end of each book. So I think doing it animated means you don't have to worry about having to wait a year for the actors to age. You could just make it voice acting and just animate them so they look older. Now, I do think that nowadays it would be unfairly compared to Gravity Falls, because they're both about two siblings that go to live with their grandpa Stan during summer vacation and discover a world of creatures that end up having to fight a demon. Gravity Falls did sort of beat Fablehaven to the punch, even though the Fablehaven books came out first. So I think it's a big disadvantage, but I'd still like to see this as a series. Books, do you think it's a series? Do you agree with my picks? Would you like to see these? Let me know.